Welcome to Quit Your Whining. This week, we're going to be talking about the media and the downfall, as I see it, of old media and the rise of new media. Joining us this week is Josh Hadley.
Joining?
Well,
I thought you just shanghaied my ass.
Well, I would have, but, I'll send you the negatives after the show. This week, now, this was spurred on by, as many of you know, Fox News is, well, in quite a bit of turmoil. Roger Ailes is gone. Bill O'Reilly has been ousted, and Ailes' right-hand man is on the way out as well. A lot of people think that Fox News is cleaning house and preparing for a soft reboot. Others think that maybe that house of cards just really started crumbling in upon itself for the last few years, and this is the end result. Personally, I think that, Fox News has gone way too far right, and people are trying to course correct it. What do you think, Josh? Do you think Fox News is just a dying dinosaur now, or this is the new wave where everything's going to be rebooting and trying to center itself? Yeah, there?
Yeah. See, the way I look at it is not only was this inevitable, it's necessary. Because Fox News is not only the perpetuator of this idiotic liberal bias in the media, but Fox News's biggest problem is they made the circus worse. Because you had MSNBC out prior to them, I believe. You had obviously CNN from way back in
they're about the
80,
same time.
182.
They were within a year of one another, MSNBC and Fox News.
Because see, there's this false pretense that there's a liberal media bias, and that's why Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch said they created Fox News. They finally needed to get a conservative voice on the air because of all the liberal media bias. Now remember, at this point, CNN was still a very credible organization. The CNN was still a place you could trust what you see. Yes, you had opinion, but it was still a relatively centered organization where it didn't matter what happened, they would arguably tell you the truth. So the whole liberal media bias was drummed up because conservatives said the media is not catering to us. So we need Murdoch's way of putting it was he wanted a voice to balance it out. So he wasn't saying we want to be a voice that tells the truth because CNN isn't. What he was saying was CNN is not helping my bottom line, so I need to create a network that gets my viewpoints out there. And yet they had the balls to go, we're the fair and balanced network. Because I remember all those early, in maybe the first year, they were always asking you, check the facts. And yet when you did, you'd go, wait a minute, about 60% of what you said was wrong. And then they were like, you're part of that liberal media bias.
Yeah, and they still do that for the most part. And our president does that too. But to be fair, the perceived liberal bias I don't think started with Fox News. I honestly think the liberal bias thing started with conservative talk radio. Now, even though there
is no liberal bias. Okay, first of all,
no, I'm saying the term liberal bias. That's where it came from.
But this whole ideology of a great conspiracy of liberal media bias. Okay, if you have ever worked in the inner circle of a corporation, they are the most conservative, both in the abstract and in the literal, conservative thing you could ever hope to see. They don't make money taking chances. They make money being literally conservative.
Now, you're not telling me that NBC is a conservative or moderate organization, are you? Or MSNBC? I mean, they obviously do have a bias on MSNBC.
Okay, not in reality. The politics might have a bias, but being liberal does not bring in advertisers, okay? networks,
well, if you look at
by
MSNBC's
and large,
ratings, MSNBC's ratings, you're absolutely correct. Being liberal does not bring in advertisers or viewers.
Liberal does not bring in anything. Because when you are liberal, it means you're taking chances. You're on the outside. You're trying to make changes. That makes advertisers scared. I have sat in on these meetings, okay? Remember, I worked in the news for a decade. Nobody says, you know what, I think we really need to get out there and do this. They go, hey, how about we keep it a little closer to the vest here? Okay, there is no liberal media bias. They are conservative by their very nature because they are there to make money. You don't make money being liberal.
So the fact that okay, fine. You want to argue that, but why is it that whenever a lot of the conservatives and a lot of conservative pundits and stuff are attacked a lot in the media, but when it comes to the progressive, well, I won't even use the term liberal. I prefer the term progressive because liberal to me is a co-opted term. The progressive media or the progressive candidates, they seem to take a softer touch with them at time to time. They'll still hold them the task over the major shit, but they won't go overboard. Like Kellyanne Conway's one of my favorite examples of recently. Now, yes, I don't like her, and I agree she said some stupid fucking shit, but you remember when she put her feet in the damn couch? And that was everywhere? Come on. There's a million other things you could beat up on her for. A million things that are completely 100% valid. But why are we focusing on this petty shit and instead reporting on the things that matter, such as policy?
Do you remember when Obama saluted one of the troops coming off Air Force One with a coffee cup in his hand? That made the conservative news cycles for almost an entire week. And then every time MSNBC showed the same thing with George Bush, they were like, well, it was a different time. It's like, no, the president wasn't black. That's why he got a pass. Everyone is in it for themselves. Go back, find old clips of CNN from 1982, 1987, 1988, and you'll see real reporting.
No, and I agree with that. There was real reporting at one point. There was real reporting.
As much as Ted Turner is a very conservative person, by the way.
Oh, Captain Planet is the modern is the conservative bastion of conservative.
He is a very conservative person. Again, you don't make money being liberal. You go back, Ted Turner kept a tight rein on CNN until he had that network wrestled away from him.
Yeah.
And the thing was, in effect, this is all kind of his fault because he's the one who created the 24-hour news cycle. Because prior to CNN, if some shit went down, if there was a terrorist attack at 3 a.m, you'd have the backup people for the backup people in the newsroom doing a quick break-in. So in a way, this is all his fault because he inadvertently created the 24-hour news cycle. But I have a lot of problems with Ted Turner, but I got to say, at least on this one, his motives were kind of pure, or at least as pure as a businessman's motives can be.
But isn't that also the problem, is the 24-hour news cycle? Now, let's just assume that there is no bias in mainstream media. I'll go with that statement. The 24-hour news cycle has created a problem, and where now it's to the point where they're not reporting the news, they're mostly reporting what almost equates to pure speculation. Because now it's like insiders say, or reports say, or this is what we've heard. It's never, this is the actual facts, this is a provable fact, a verifiable fact, something we've done research on.
That's because of the biases. Fox News will look for
That's not just Fox News.
Fox News will, for example, everybody gets the same AP statement. I can't remember who did it. A couple of years ago, there was somebody on YouTube. I don't remember who it was because we're going like 2 or 3 years ago. And somebody took the same AP statement and then showed exactly how Fox spun it, how MSNBC spun it, how CNN spun it, and it was all the same basic facts, but if you only got the Fox version, you would only get some of the facts. If you only got the MSNBC version, you'd only...
They're not doing this the whole time.
The same information, but they massaged it to get their own point across.
Okay, yeah, but further different
agenda.
Oh no, that is egregious. But this is like the whole time when Trump was coming into office. The whole time he was coming into office, all they did was talk about how they were in turmoil, how everything was going bad behind the scenes, how everything was horrible. And it's all insiders say. Insiders tell us. This is what insiders say. Who's your insider? You're not giving us a source. You're just saying an insider says. And there is no actual evidence to the fact other than you saying an insider said. And everybody runs with it.
The thing is a very dicey time because...
But it's dicey like that for every president.
Shush and listen. This was a very dicey time. Or this is a very dicey thing to do, because there are times you absolutely need literal anonymous sources. Yes, most times you should go, okay, this person's, but if that person then is outed, I'm just going to use Trump as an example, but this is not exclusive to Trump. Say the Trump administration, one of the insiders, let's say for the sake of this argument, their information is correct, okay? That everything that they told MSNBC or CNN is factual. Just for this argument.
Okay.
So they give true information, but they have to remain anonymous. Otherwise, Trump or Obama or Bush is going to fire them, and then MSNBC or whoever loses access to this person. And then that sends a chilling effect down the line. Maybe the next person's not going to say something that maybe is very, very big because they're afraid of keeping their job.
Yes.
So you have to remain. I mean, hell, do you think Deep Throat? I don't mean Linda Lovett.
I know what you mean.
Do you think Deep Throat should have had to have been identified?
No.
He would have never gotten the information he got if he had been identified.
But
he needed to be literally anonymous.
But it's not anymore where they're using the anonymity in order to push something, not to push something, but to report on something that that has to be reported because
Matt,
for the sake of the country.
You used the wrong word. You said report. What Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN for the most part, is they are opinion news at this point. Okay. Again, go back and watch when they had actual newscasts on all of these networks. Even Fox News used to have actual newscasts, not commentary. Here's all the facts, blah, 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 blah. They used to
actually have a morning their morning shows. What was it? America's Newsroom wasn't just a saying. That actually used to be not a talking head show. It used to just be them giving you the daily news in the world and in the nation, like headline news. But that's what they used to do.
But reporting requires, even if it's an anonymous source, two sources or two people that verify the same information. Okay? When you are a journalist, an actual journalist, not a Bill O'Reilly, not a Keith Olbermann, not a Greta Van Susteren, not a Larry King, an actual journalist, you cannot go on again, I have been in these meetings where all of the information lines up, but you can only set up one source. They will not go for it. And you have to have, everything has to be sourced by, okay, your anonymous source says X. Well, we need a second anonymous source that will verify X's story, or we're not going with it.
Or you better give us give us some concrete evidence to show us what is going on.
Matt, you are confusing reporters with pundits. Bill O'Reilly is a pundit.
But
Jesse Waters is a pundit. You know what? It actually defames the word reporter that Jesse Waters calls himself a reporter.
I agree with you completely on that statement. But isn't that a problem now? The line between pundit, blogger, commentator, whatever you want to call them, and an actual journalist, because you will not call them journalists, correct? The pundits are not journalists.
No, they're not. They might have journalists that work for them.
Right.
But they are not. You know where all this line got so blurred? It got so blurred by Gawker. when Gawker started that citizen journalism bullshit a few years ago, when they said
he also had Slate
you
and
don't
others
need a
that
journalism
went to blogging.
degree, you don't need any training. I mean, they were literally putting up things as news that were just being tweeted to them. Well, it's news that, Wampa Fan 101 said this, so it's got to be true. And people started abusing the word journalism, which ended up abusing the state of journalism.
There are blogs with White House access. Why does a blog have White House access?
A blog should not have White House access.
No.
I mean, Trump brought in...
This is before Trump. Even during Obama and
NBC
Bush
and everything, when he was pulling that shit, he was bringing in obscure right-wing blogs and saying, you have White House access, but NBC News does not. No matter what you think of NBC News, Fox News, I don't mean Fox News the network, I mean Fox like your local Fox affiliate, which is generally not associated with the Fox News channel, although I know that can get confusing. But when you've got NBC
They're
News...
run by two totally different wings of each other.
Exactly, but a lot of people, like, even if you see like Fox 38, you're a local Florida affiliate, people, it's Fox News. No, it's a totally different thing. But so you've got NBC News, Fox News, CBS News, ABC News, and you've got some independent news services which don't exist as much anymore. Mm-hmm. They still have at least a tacit credibility. I mean, yes, you'll get the stupid moments like the whole George Bush papers thing that completely sunk Dan Rather and stuff like that. But in general, the people who work for these organizations are actual journalists. I mean, when Bill O'Reilly started, I believe he started as an actual journalist, because you hear these people tell these stories about Bill O'Reilly. This is like before the whole Falklands lie and all that, and before he started to get ratings in his eyes, and the moving up, he seemed to have been an actual journalist that cared about the facts. And then he saw facts don't get ratings, hyperbole does.
Yeah, and he knows how to work the system and get ratings. He was very good at that. Hate him or not, he was good at it.
Oh,
huh?
He also knows how to work his dick on a phone.
That's true. Hey, he's got skills. But yeah, but there is a huge difference between blogging and reporting. But now it's becoming to a point that whenever you pull, I don't know how many times you've tried to research an article you see, an actual article on a legitimate website, trace it back, try to source it back, and end up at some weird blog or InfoWars or the Daily Beast or some blog where they're like, this is what we're speculating, or this is what it's pure speculation with no facts, but somehow it's been circulated, twisted, and molded into becoming a fact, and it's so circular that even the original source is then reporting on a story from the mainstream site when the original source of that was their own article. You have practically pulled out of thin air.
You have people like Alex Jones, and even for a while, I remember a year or two ago, Bill O'Reilly went off that the AP can't even be trusted. The Associated Press has a bias because they were saying negative things about conservatives that were all factual. So they have a bias because they're not on our. If you're not with us, then you're an enemy. And that's what we have. That's what journalism has come to, and that's the problem with all of this. And I misspoke, not journalism, punditism, because there is still true journalism out there, but unfortunately, you have to look at your local level, because unless it's a national story, unless it's something, since the Trump's in office, I'll use Trump as an example, something in the Donald Trump administration or a big national shooting or something like that, okay, then you're going to have to go to NBC News out of New York. But odds are most stories that you're going to run across come from some local affiliate, from some local journalist who probably is being paid dick and is not going to get the credit. I have seen that happen A friend of mine used to work at a Fox affiliate. Again, Fox News and Fox The News are not the same thing.
No, they are
but
not.
He worked in the Fox The News, a Fox affiliate. And there were more than once where he was a photojournalist with them, a photog, and he would get stuff, and he's getting paid $10 an hour. He would get stuff. It would go up. It would air on Fox News because they still share with each other. Like, I worked at an NBC affiliate, and we shared with MSNBC all the time. But his footage would be then being played all over Fox News. He wouldn't get any credit for that. He's getting paid $10 an hour. Bill O'Reilly's playing this footage. Bill O'Reilly's getting paid $20 million a year. Bill O'Reilly probably doesn't even know his name or where this footage came from, nor does he give a shit. That discourages people from... Do you realize how bad newsrooms are right now for pay and working conditions? That it discourages
any asshole with a damn iPhone can record footage, put it on YouTube, and all of a sudden, there's your footage for the story, and you're putting a camera operator. Dude, I kid you not.
You used to have to be trained for this.
Yeah, and local affiliates. How many times on local affiliates have you seen a reporter doing a story and you're like, oh my God, they totally shot that shit in an iPhone?
I don't know about an iPhone, but I've seen some pathetic shit.
Oh, I've seen them where they've been shot. I've watched local news reports on my local stations, I won't mention which one, where I'm like, they have a microphone adapter plugged into an iPhone, and their iPhone's on a tripod because I noticed the way it's compressed. That's shot on a cell phone. My God, they don't even pay the camera guy anymore. They just have you go out there with a Gorilla Pod, mount the phone to something, and record.
What that's called is one-man banding, and that's becoming more and more popular. That when I started in the news, this was 2001. So when I started in the news, shortly after September 11th, when I started working in the news, people, you'd have, just some local car accident, a milk truck overturned on the highway. You'd send out a reporter, a producer, a photog, and usually then the tech guy. You'd send somebody from engineering in case something went wrong with a live truck. Now you literally send one guy in the truck, and he's the reporter. He has to set up the camera, do the lighting, set up his mic, do all the interviews, because there's no money anymore. The internet has destroyed journalism, both esoterically and financially.
Have you seen, I kid you not, live reporting from the scene, and it's obviously a green screen?
That's happened on all the major networks too. Fox, MSNBC, and CNN have all been caught doing that.
Oh, I've seen local channels do it too. I'm like, you're obviously in a green screen because the wind is blowing around the trees and your hair isn't moving a lick unless you're using a shit ton of hairspray and somehow your clothes are also that stiff. You're not on the scene.
Well, in a case like that, you have to stop wind. If it's really windy out, like if it's winter, you would have a windshield around you with the lights inside it. So that's really not telling.
Yeah, but it's also the audio. It doesn't have the ambiance that you'd usually get from an outdoor shoot. Some don't even bother trying to produce the ambiance. It's just obviously it's very clean audio, and I'm like, wow, they either got some really amazing filtering or they are not there.
Do you know where some of the best journalism is being done these days? Local newspapers. Everyone discounts newspapers. Oh, it's a dead art. No one buys papers. No, newspapers in general are where the best reporting comes from. Those newspaper reporters still take their jobs very, very seriously.
And not only that, but the issue also is that newspapers don't technically have a 24-hour cycle. You can have time to research something, to mold it. Now, granted, it's a lot. They want quicker results than they used to, and that's just the nature of the beast now. But they take their time, they research it, and then they actually report it. They tell you what's going on. They don't. My local newspaper, even though a lot of people do claim it has a liberal bias, and yeah, they run PolitiFact. But yes, they do. The Tampa Bay Times at least reports on or the Tampa Times, whatever they call themselves now, reports what goes on and pretty accurate. They had a scathing but very insightful expose on Scientology. The Scientologists, we're in their head. You know, I live in their headquarters, right? In that area for Scientologists. And you know how litigious they are, right? The Scientologists? You there, Josh?
I'm listening.
Yeah. So I was waiting for some sort of affirmation. You know how litigious they are, right? Pretty much any news outlet that goes after them, they pretty much try to sue and win a lot of times. Well, they went after him. And this is before Leah Romani, or whatever her name is, went out there and started her anti-Scientology thing. This is like years before that. And gave people the most insightful insight into Scientology. You would never get that in mainstream media. You never get that with cable news. You probably wouldn't even get that with blogs or on the internet. No. You need a newspaper for that. Because they will do that, and they are still considered a record of authority. And I still trust newspapers. I trust them quite a bit because at least they take their time to report on it, and they have real reporters. It's sad they're all dying, and they're all getting bought up by each other too.
Well, and see, that's another problem, and this does come back to financial. This is happening at newspapers and TV stations, you know, the local affiliates all across the country, that it's coming down to finances. Yeah. And one of the stations I worked for, I think I'd been there 2 or 3 years at this point. There was people that was there because I talked to some of these people. You know, I'm a big pop culture guy. I would talk like, "Hey, you remember like Thundercats or something?" And he's like, "Yeah, I used to run that program when I worked in Master Control." You know, these are people who've been there for 20 years. They know everything. They've been there through all of the upgrades, through the switch to digital, everything. Slowly but surely, as I was there, all of those people would be let go, and fresh from journalism school or fresh from engineering school people who had no experience at all would be brought in, and they didn't know how to. At one point, I had to train my news director on how to take a feed from CNN. This is my boss who jumped over me and is paid 10 times what I'm paid per hour. I'm training him. Why? He didn't know how to do any of this. And I was the last person there at one point who knew how to do some of these things because they fired or laid off everyone else. Why? Because you have to give everyone a raise every year or two.
Oh.
So you know, the old timer might be making $26 an hour. You can get this kid fresh out of college for $8 and a lunch.
And what about the one? And now they're firing seasoned veteran reporters and journalists and replacing them with bloggers, people who write blogs. I'm like, they are not journalists. They are not reporters. You cannot replace a reporter or a journalist with a blogger because their job is, like we said earlier, commentary and punditry, and that's what you're going to get. And at that point, you're no longer reporting news. You're just spouting you're just publishing an editorial at that point. You can't do that.
And now, this probably isn't that common of a problem.
Or worse, nowadays, they just run the AP story, say this is from AP, and all the newspaper consists of is strictly AP stories. There's a lot of papers like that now. I
don't know how common this is, but you get these new people with no experience, and you get what you pay for. Yeah. We had one girl.
In any field.
We had one girl which we nicknamed Bobblehead. I don't even remember what her name was. She lasted about 3 days. She was fresh out of journalism school. She was incredibly smart. Writing all her stories were, you know, very well researched. She was a true journalist. As soon as she would go on the air, as soon as that red light came on, she would freeze. Red light goes off. She just gave a horrible report. You know, she stumbled her way through it. You can see how nervous she is. She's back to normal. She just froze by the very thought of live television.
Why would you be in TV at that point?
She had the chops behind the scenes. It's like, at that point, you don't need to be a journalist. You be a producer.
Yeah.
Because the producers generally...
You might want to go into print.
Yeah. And
but
actually, I could... You know what? I could fill a whole episode with the stories of all the bizarre shit that I saw working in Green Bay TV, but we won't go there now.
That's fine with me. But yeah, I do trust newspapers, but a lot of people, there have been polls recently, and they're looking at trust within the mass media, and the numbers are quite staggering. I think I showed these to you earlier, and we were looking at one of the interesting surveys I saw was they were doing trust by party. Now, of course, the Democrat and Republicans are split, and it's about, currently in 2015 when this study was done, Democrats trust them half the mainstream media half the time, but Republicans trust them 14% of the time. I'd say that's a trustworthy assessment because of the perceived liberal bias. But what's interesting to me in this survey is the independents. These are people who don't identify either way. Used to be in 1997, 53% trusted the mass media. Now it's down to 30%. 30% of people trust the media. These are independents. That is dangerously scary in my opinion, because at that point they're pretty much saying, I don't know who to trust. Who do I listen to? Who is there to trust anymore? What do you think has contributed to that?
Because cable news, this is even prior to the internet, cable news eroded all of that trust. When you had Fox News running around going, we're fair and balanced and we're the only ones telling you the truth, and they're wrong most of the time, and they're non-factual most of the time, after a while that erodes your trust. It's like if you're at work every day, somebody plays a practical joke on you, you're going to start to get a little anxious and always expect that practical joke. And then the one time that they're serious, you're not going to believe them. It's boy who cried wolf.
But
cable news eroded all of the trust.
Yeah. Because how many,
all of it.
And not just Fox News, because how many stories have have you seen where they reported on something that happened? They go out there, and this is reporting, actual reporting. They go to a live shot of someone talking about the situation, and then they take that story, they run with it, and by the time it goes through the filter at the network, they're reporting the speculation from the pundits as the actual fact, and not actually what the reporter actually said. And to the point, and that reporter's never going to come on. That reporter's probably not going to come back. They're probably never going to go to that live shot again because that guy's already gone off the scene. And they just keep running with what the pundits said. You're creating fake news at that point out of real news. You're molding it. You can't do that shit. I mean, look at whenever we have a major event happen, I'm kind of worried, like, what are they going to say now? What's going to be actually told to me about why this happened? Is they actually going to give me the facts? Or we're just going to have rampant speculation on the fact? Every mass shooting that happens, God, and I hate these. I hate mass shootings. But every one that happens, you're either going to get the one side going to be going, okay, is this a white guy who has conservative views, who's all pro-gun, or is it a Muslim? There's really no in-between they're looking at half the time.
There really isn't, because no matter what you say about
liberals... If it's
liberals,
an Asian guy, oh my God, that all of a sudden I don't hear about it that much anymore. Because the Virginia Tech shooter, one of the school shooters,
the Virginia Tech shooter was Asian, but he was also conservative.
Yeah.
But I mean, no matter what you say about liberals are not the kind that are going to go take a gun and start shooting up a campus. That really is going to be a religious person, when you really get down to it.
I will not make that statement. I have no facts to really back that up. I mean, the guys that usually go on rampages, they a lot of times don't have any political ideology. Now, granted, a lot of them got their guns from family members who do, but a lot of them don't have really any political ideology. They just want mass violence. It isn't because of politics, usually. I mean, the shooter in Orlando was, the guy in San Bernardino was, but they weren't conservatives. They were terrorists at that point.
Well, there's not just that, but there's also just the fact that it tends to be conservatives are the ones who love your guns, and when you love your guns, you tend to you tend to run to them before anything else.
That's a discussion for another time. We'll talk if you want to do something on gun control. That's fine. But back on that's a whole different discussion that'll lead to something and off tangent on something else, because I don't agree with that. I love my guns and I don't feel like I want to shoot everything. But going back, that is a problem, because it's almost like whenever there is a story, they're looking for the angle they want to push. That, I think, needs to end. We can't be doing that anymore, because they even slight pushing that angle when it becomes that angle isn't apparent and there is a different angle. Now they don't redact hardly anymore. I think that's the right term, right? Redact? They don't redact it anymore. They don't go and say, hey, we were wrong. No, they'll do like a 5-second blurb, maybe a short paragraph saying how they were sorry, and that is the last you'll ever hear of it. But no one ever reads that, or no one ever sees that. George Zimmerman, when they edited the 911 tape and took out, made him look racist by editing out his the 911 operator's comments to ask what he looked like. They edited that out to where George Zimmerman just said he looks black because, I don't know, I'm speculating here, they wanted him to look racist. But when Fox News, and one thing they did right, they got the full tape and said this wasn't what actually happened. This is the conversation that led to that. I didn't see anyone ever apologize for that. And granted, the producer in Miami who edited it got fired, rightfully so. But none of the other outlets said, oh, this is the real one. We're sorry. And no one ran with that, but they ran the hell out of the original 911, out of the edited 911 tape. That's just disingenuous, in my opinion.
That happens all the time. Look at how many outlets ran the Planned Parenthood. Oh, we got him on tape selling body parts. Look at how many ran that. Did anyone apologize for that? Of course they didn't.
They still say it's
everyone at Fox News specifically who stood behind, we finally got him, just said, let's just move on.
No, and there have been one, and I think because they have had some victories with those videos. The issue, the initial one was probably the Acorn video, which got Acorn shut down,
which was edited by Andrew Breitbart.
Yeah, and what happened to the guy that actually did those videos? Do you remember what happened to him?
Wasn't it Andrew Breitbart that paid the guy to do it?
This was Project Veritas, and this same guy got in trouble for trying to sexually assault one of the CNN anchors on a boat. Remember that?
Hey, you know what? If I was alone with Erin Burnett, I'd probably sexually assault her too.
Yeah, they had like dildos and shit like that on the boat, and they were also the ones that got caught bugging one of the Louisiana representative. One of the Louisiana representatives got caught bugging her phones.
But like I said, I've got a weird thing for Erin Burnett on CNN. So she's really freaking cute, man. Yeah, she's dumb as a stump, but she's really cute.
Yeah. James O'Keefe is the guy's name. I can't believe I blanked on that. Yeah, James O'Keefe.
Little Jimmy O'Keefe. By the way, he was one of the, quote, reporters that Bill O'Reilly went to again and again and again. Jimmy O'Keefe was one of O'Reilly's go-to guys.
Mary Landrieu. He went into Mary Landrieu's office and practically bugged her phones. He also did the NPR videos, which really didn't tell anybody new that we didn't already know. And he also did he was also the one who tried to set up, I believe he tried to set up, I'm trying to find the information on that. He tried to set up one of the CNN anchors or something. That's kind of what led to his downfall. I think that was him. I'm pretty sure that was him.
Yeah, it was James. But like I said, he was one of O'Reilly's most trusted guys. That shows you where Fox News was. We need to push an agenda. Whatever we have to do that is acceptable.
Yeah, and other news outlets are like that. Like you said earlier, Dan Rather and the Bush paper and the Bush National Guard records. They did a shit job vetting that, but they wanted to get it out there before the election because it was right when the election was coming up. Bush's re-election.
Ratings unfortunately play far too big of a stake in whether it's local news or cable or whatever. Ratings, unfortunately, play way too big of a stake in this. You should never I've been in these meetings where it's like, we've got this story. Well, can we hold on to it for a week until such and such is up for election? And it's like, no. But it's news now.
No, you cannot do that. You need to report it when you need to report it. Quit trying to influence an election or anything like that. Report what happens when it happens, and report with fact and diligence and with principles. In other words, don't try and filter things through your own. Everything's going to be filtered, but you have to be aware of the filter. I had to say it. Now, you watch Supergirl, right?
I gave up a long time ago, but okay, I'm gonna tell you a story.
Okay.
This happened to. You might want to beep her name or not, but I worked with a reporter named. She was a really good person, really smart. I enjoyed talking to her. She was a god-awful reporter, though. At one point, she made our entire station persona non grata with all of the local police because she needed to get on the air before all of the other affiliates. We had a missing Vietnamese girl. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. We had a missing Vietnamese girl who'd been missing for about 3 weeks. No one knew where she was. So a car was found at the bottom of the lake that had a woman's body in it. So she was the first one out there. And the cops told her, we cannot positively or negatively say this is whatever the Vietnamese girl's name was. Went on the air and said that they found her body and used her name. God. After the police specifically told her not. Now, it turned out she was right. It was the girl she identified. So technically on the air, she didn't lie. But for almost 6 months, none of the local press offices would take our calls for the PD. We were persona non grata. She alienated our entire station because she needed to fucking be first. She needed to show her bosses that she has, in her words, the initiative to see a story and run with it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what happens a lot nowadays.
That is an example.
First. And you know,
that's an example, Matt. That's an example of what cable news is like every single day.
And you know who
you literally, if you've ever sat in on any of those meetings, you literally, if you are not first, if you come in, let's say there's 3 networks. You got, let's just say CNN, MSNBC, and Fox. You got the 3 big networks. If you come in third on the story every day for a month, you don't have a job anymore. So the way you keep your job is to make sure you get it before everybody else. Maybe you're right half the time, but you were there first.
And I think one of the biggest causes of this isn't actually cable news. You know who I actually blame for a lot of this and a lot of the speculative stuff? Matt Drudge.
Matt Drudge is not a journalist.
I know.
He calls himself a journalist.
He got lucky with the Monica Lewinsky thing. And ever since then, everyone wants to become the next Matt Drudge. A lot of these bloggers want to become the next Drudge. Now, Drudge he's a Trump guy, and he has a lot of problems, and I don't trust him as far as I can throw him.
He also does not have nearly the status he did 10 years ago.
He does not. He was one of the guys that helped get Trump elected, and he's in that inner circle over there. Him and Bannon are practically interchangeable at this point, but Bannon's dangerous for other reasons. But back on that. Breitbart, all those sites, Breitbart, The Blaze, even you could argue, I think HuffPo wasn't around. No, HuffPo was created as the anti-Drudge report. That's what Arianna Huffington formed it for. That was supposed to be the anti-Drudge report, the counter to that. And now all these people think they can get online and become journalists because they have a camera and a microphone, and they'll go up to people and they'll have an obvious bias, record people's opinions or stuff, find the people who fit that bias and say, this is how this is. This is how it really is. But I'm like, yeah, but you had to interview 50 people to get these guys. But what about the other 48 or the other 47 that were the way you didn't want them to be? How many?
Do you
Waters, by the way, is one of those guys who does that.
Do you know where one of the weird places that you find relatively balanced TV news?
I read BBC, but
No. PBS. The
Yeah,
PBS news hours, they don't really have a bias, and technically they should, because of the whole fact that they're public broadcasting. They technically should have a bias, but I haven't really noticed one, at least not an overt one.
no, I really don't. I could maybe argue some stuff on NPR, not the news reports, but some of the content on NPR. But no, PBS is usually pretty balanced, surprisingly. I mostly go to foreign sources. I look at not RT, obviously, although I don't know why RT is so popular all of a sudden. Do you know why? I mean, it's Russia Today. They run by the Russian state.
For a foreign source, it depends on what you're looking for, because like The Guardian, and remember, I've been in The Guardian when they reported on the Secret Service investigating me and costing me my job. That because The Guardian was one of the ones I contacted. When it comes to news and journalism, I think The Guardian's pretty good. My God, do they need a fucking pop culture editor, though? Every time they talk about a movie or a comic book, it makes me want to tear my fucking hair out. Constantly misspelled names, wrong dates. It's like, I get it, you're a news source, but could you hire a fucking pop culture editor that knows something about pop culture?
So what do you think needs to be done to fix? Because do you at least think that the media is somewhat broken at this point, that there is an actual breakdown with the actual media, between the media and the people at this point? Or do you think that it's just cracked and not completely fractured? Or there's no problem?
It's irreparable. This is exactly what Maciejewski warned about in the 70s. In 1976, he warned about all of this stuff. And I mean, we've even seen the reporter killed on the air now. I mean, that wasn't the media that did that, but it was the media that ran with it. So literally everything in network has come true.
And that was in one of my local markets.
Yeah. So literally everything in network has come true. And network was one of the most brilliant warnings ever. The news media, the internet, as long as the internet is around, the news will not be fixed. Because there are too many people that if you don't like what NBC says, if you don't like what Fox says, you can find a Breitbart. You can find an InfoWars. You can find a Prison Planet. You can find whatever confirms your bias. Everyone has confirmation bias. It used to be, if you remember back in the 60s, who was the most trusted man in America?
Walter Cronkite.
Walter Cronkite. Not the president, not the head of the archdiocese, a newsman.
Yeah.
And even before that, who was the most trusted man in America? Edward R. Murrow.
Yep.
A newsman.
And who was one of the guys who started really kind of pushing his bias in his newspaper? Hearst.
Yeah, Hearst, one of the most powerful men in America.
Yes. And who continues that tradition? Murdoch.
Hearst basically invented yellow journalism.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't single-handedly do it, but he had a large role in it.
Oh, yeah. If you're on his bad side, don't ever hope to ever work in Hollywood or work in politics ever again.
Okay, this is not about the movie, but if you guys, any listener, wants to see how bad Hearst controlled, how much control he had, research Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Not the movie itself, but how the movie was made, why it was made, and how Hearst pulled out all the stops. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the sleazy, underhanded shit Hearst did to try and stop Orson Welles. All from releasing a movie.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention that, yeah, I mean, people say now it's the greatest movie ever made. At the time, it was the worst movie ever made. It was the most hated for a long time.
First of all, Hearst owned all the major critics. He literally threatened to bankrupt any competing newspaper that ran ads for it. any radio station that ran ads for it, he said, I will pull all my advertising and put all my resources to put you out of business if you run ads for this movie. And I mean, it's way sleazier than that. At one point, he tried to get Orson Welles set up as a potential pedophile. He had a 12-year-old girl, a 12-year-old prostitute, waiting in Orson Welles' hotel room, all naked, laying in Welles' bed with a photographer hidden in the closet, waiting for Welles to come back to his hotel that night. As soon as he opened the door, she would jump out of bed, jump onto him naked, and the reporter would jump out, or the photographer would jump out and take photographs. And that was going to be Hearst's I finally got Welles. But a police officer...
that sounds like a James O'Keefe deal, man. I'm sorry, I can't...
A police officer who found out about it, he was instrumental in setting it up. He testified before a grand jury about this, that his conscience got the better of him, and Orson didn't know any of this at the time. He has told Orson Welles, don't go back to your hotel room tonight. Just find another hotel room, other side of town. Don't go to your hotel room. Hearst was literally willing to set up a man who made a movie he didn't like because
it was about him. And Welles wasn't very quiet. I mean, he didn't overtly ever say, if I remember right, that it was about Hearst. He never overtly said it or directly said it. But everyone knew that's who it was about.
It's clearly a Hearst.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, the whole Rosebud thing. Calling the sled Rosebud, that's what Hearst called his mistress's vagina.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a
pretty good biographical pick on Hearst, actually. I mean, a lot of liberties taken, but not that far off.
I just wonder if Hearst can destroy a room as epically as Kane could.
Probably. Yeah.
Destroying scene. Even Tommy Wiseau can't equal that.
No, that was epic. And by the way, I know Citizen Kane is always touted as the greatest film ever made. It is a damn good movie, and I do highly recommend checking it out, especially to see that era and what we're talking about now about the news and everything. Because it is kind of, in a way, the network of its time, in a way. It really kind of is.
It also, I don't think Welles and his cinematographer get enough credit for this. A lot of filmmaking things that are standard nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
He invented. There are so many unique shots and optical zooms and, all these things. These were not done in movies. No. He literally invented techniques that became commonplace.
Because at that point, pretty much everything was static shot for the most part. The camera really didn't move too much before then.
Hell, he technically invented non-linear storytelling.
Yeah.
Up to the point, every movie played in order. Yes, you might have an occasional flashback, but you didn't have a movie going from here to here to here to here to here to back to here, up to here, then back to here. That movie is visionary on so many levels. Doesn't matter if you like the story. Just look at the technique of Citizen Kane, and it is a fucking marvel.
Yep. Well, back on topic, I do think that at this point, I don't think we're completely irrevocably broken. I think we can do a reset and get things back.
I didn't it because it's not going to happen.
I know. I'm not saying it will happen. I think the only way it possibly ever could happen is someone or something has to happen or has to come in and say, money doesn't matter. Because at this point, that's all that really matters is money. Because there used to be a point in time where what mattered was the facts, damn the money. If you had something on an advertiser and they were doing something shady, you didn't force the reporter to bury the story.
There used to be a wall between advertising and the news. The news used to be, this isn't the correct term, but a loss leader. You knew you were going to lose money on the news, but then you'd make up that loss in the entertainment sections or things like that. The news used to not be beholden to the dollar.
No.
And that changed in the early 1990s. I don't even know what the precipitative event would have been, but it was around the early 1990s when you started to see all of the newspapers, the news departments, being subjective to the advertising. Hell,
that was easy. That was
again,
the rise of cable news, because
again,
people weren't
I
going to
sat through
newspapers
this
nearly as much.
At one of the stations I worked for. I don't know if they have Taco John's restaurants out by you. It's a chain around here. I don't know if it's nationwide or not.
We don't.
But it's a Taco Bell, competitor. So the local Taco John's had been shut down for food safety violations and salmonella violations. There was actually a debate in the morning meeting about whether we run this story, because Taco John's buys a lot of ads on this station. And if we run the story, we risk losing Taco John's advertising. And my thought was, why are we even discussing this?
Yeah, it's sad. But I think that's the one thing that I can say about, I'd say it, bloggers. A lot of them aren't beholden to media, or aren't beholden to advertisers, so they can actually report. But a lot of them don't have any journalistic integrity, so it's all filtered and twisted and usually full of bias. So you can't really take it honestly. Until we get to a point, unless something miracle happens where advertising doesn't matter as much as the facts, yeah, we're done for. There's nothing we can do about it. But I'm just being altruistic here. Yeah, you're probably right. Now, what sources do you think, before I wrap up, what sources would you recommend people probably check out if they want to at least try to get some news and not as much commentary? You have any sites you can think of?
There are certain things you do when you're trying to vet a story. Let's just use NBC as an example. Doesn't matter what your bias is. Let's just use NBC as an example. If you read a story on NBC.com or NBCnews.com or even CBS.com, whatever it is, you read a story on one of those major sites, generally you can trust that it's at least gone through a few hands. I'm not talking a political story. I'm talking a shooting, a truck turning over, a factory
story.
recall, something like that. You can generally trust it. But when people go, well, I mean, you don't know how many times I have ended conversations with somebody, both in real life and online, when they're like, well, I read on the Blaze. It's like, nope. No, you don't even get to. If you bring up InfoWars, Breitbart, The Blaze, Fox News, MSNBC, Huffington Post, then no, I'm not listening to you, because it's probably not right.
Now, correct. I do. Now, this is what I do. I do read The Blaze and those sites, but what I usually look for is the link to the original story. I stop reading the story, look for the link. When I find the link, I click that link and see where it goes. And then I read that story and see if it's a report or commentary. If it's a report, I read it. If it's commentary, I try to find the original source of that and trace it back. That's what I do. I trace the original story back, or I trace the story back to its original source so I can get it without the filters. That's what I do. Sometimes you end up finding a good story on a good local site. Other times you end up at InfoWars, which happens way more often than I like to admit.
I don't understand how people can't understand that InfoWars and The Blaze and Breitbart are not real news.
They are.
There's this term, fake news, that Trump loves to throw around, that anything he doesn't agree with is fake news. Doesn't matter if it's completely vetted and 100% true, it's fake news.
Yeah.
Fake news is Breitbart and InfoWars and all that. And they have co-opted that term to mean not us, everything, but like when Alex Jones lost his kids in that custody case.
And by the way,
did you watch that half-hour press conference?
Oh my God!
It was like watching a man have a nervous breakdown in front of you while remaining completely calm. He completely touted, all of you got the facts wrong, even though the facts are exactly from transcripts of the court case. You got it all wrong. You cherry-picked.
I got the paper right here. I got it right here. Why don't you read the paper? I got it right here in my hand. This is exactly what it says. I got it right here.
I mean, hell, this is the man whose lawyer argued he was a performance artist, then he immediately broke the judge's gag order, went on the internet and said, I am not. I am True Blue. I am... Because he was more concerned about losing his audience than his kids.
Yeah.
Because his kids don't bring him millions of dollars every year.
Oh.
His audience does.
Yeah. Oh, and side thing. I see this videos are kind of taking off right now. Y'all do realize who that is formed by one of the guys who helped form HuffPo, right? Those are all biased as shit. Quit posting those as being actual news sources, please.
Do you know what weird news source is out there?
Which one?
Al Jazeera America.
Oh, yeah. No. Don't. Well, they don't exist anymore. But, yeah, no. Don't go there. Don't go there.
I've seen a lot of really good... I'm just talking like human interest stories. I've seen a lot of really good shit on Al Jazeera America.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of bad shit on Al Jazeera. A lot of it. Well, they are a terrorist news network.
Before Russia Today imploded, this is 2-3 years ago, Russia Today the American division did a whole lot of good reporting.
Yeah, but then Putin decided to use them as his propaganda wing, which is pretty much what.
Which actually caused one of his anchors to quit on the air, if you remember.
Oh yeah. Look that up.
A propaganda
I think a couple did that too.
Those are the people you have to respect. That you have to assume for her to do that up until that point, she was doing the best job she could, and she was not going to be a puppet.
That was Jeffrey Summers, Associate Professor of Political Economy at the University of Wisconsin. Before we wrap up the show, I wanted to say something from my heart about the ongoing political crisis in Ukraine and Russia's military occupation of Crimea. Just because I work here for RT doesn't mean I don't have editorial independence. And I can't stress enough how strongly I am against any state intervention in a sovereign nation's affairs. What Russia did is wrong. I admittedly don't know as much as I should about Ukraine's history or the cultural dynamics of the region, but what I do know is that military intervention is never the answer, and I will not sit here and apologize or defend military aggression. Furthermore, the coverage I've seen of Ukraine has been truly disappointing from all sides of the media spectrum and rife with disinformation. Above all, my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people who are now wedged as pawns in the middle of a global power chess game. They're the real losers here. All we can do now is hope for a peaceful outcome for a terrible situation and prevent another full-blown Cold War between multiple superpowers. Until then, I'll keep telling the truth as I see it. Have a good night, everyone. I'll see you back here to break the set tomorrow.
Last night, RT made international headlines when one of our anchors went on the record and said Russian intervention in Crimea is wrong. And indeed, as a reporter on this network, I face many ethical and moral challenges, especially me personally, coming from a family whose my grandparents came here as refugees during the Hungarian Revolution, ironically to escape the Soviet forces. I have family on the opposite side, on my mother's side, that sees the daily grind of poverty. And I'm very lucky to have grown up here in the United States. I'm the daughter of a veteran. My partner is a physician at a military base where he sees every day the firsthand accounts of the ultimate prices that people pay for this country. And that is why personally I cannot be part of a network funded by the Russian government that whitewashes the actions of Putin. I'm proud to be an American and believe in disseminating the truth. And that is why, after this newscast, I'm resigning.
All right. So my suggestion, do your vetting or do your own fact checking. Don't trust what you read on the sites. Trace it back to the source. Do your own research. I know plenty of people who go to PolitiFact and things no, don't trust other people's fact checks. Be your own fact checker. You see something in the media, you're not you want to verify it? Go look for the source, read it.
Matt, you know what? I've actually had people that, because it doesn't support their political bias, say Snopes has a liberal bias.
Yes, I've seen that too. And I've seen people go after several other sites or several other reputable fact sources saying they have a bias because it disagrees. No, they don't. But
no,
again,
they don't have bias because they're saying that your candidate or whoever is a fucking asshole because he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, and like I said, do your own research and also stay open-minded. Don't just say, no, I won't believe it because this isn't what I believe. No. Stay open-minded, do your own research, and look at what's going on. If you're pissed off, if people are reporting on a Trump executive order, go look at the order and read it for yourself. They're usually pretty short. Read it. Yeah, because he can't write very long. Go and read it. Form your own opinion. Don't take what the conservative site says. Don't take what a liberal or a progressive site says. Research it and read it for yourself and form your own opinion. Don't just go off of what other people say, because at that point you're just propagating you're just propagating the bias at that point. Stop it. Everybody does it, but we need to stop. We need to reel it back in. Don't link to Now This or HuffPo or the Blaze or Fox News or MSNBC like Josh said. Link yourself. Read it for yourself. Say, this is my source. This is the original story. Here's my opinion, and go from there. That's all I ask.
Although, to be fair, sometimes you can't get a second source. Joe Bob Briggs actually wrote an article. Remember, he used to be a reporter for some Texas newspapers back in the 80s, where he was reporting on things he witnessed with his own eyes. He was reporting on a policeman beating up a black guy. And his editor said, we need two sources. He's like, there were three of us there. Do you think the cop is going to verify this?
Exactly. All right. So, Josh, where can they find you online, man?
I'm not online. I'm sitting in a chair.
Go to 1201beyond.com to see all of Josh's content and shows. Really good stuff on there. I highly recommend Radio Jome and Lost in the Static. What the fuck? It's all liberal bullshit there, so don't even bother listening to that.
According to the comments we get, we live in an echo chamber. We're stupid liberals. We, especially Kat and I, are as much a part of the problem as we bitch about and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. No, actually, I rather enjoy What the Fuck. It's pretty enjoyable as long as you can withstand, Josh's just constant bashing of Fox News almost every episode. Be sure to check out our new website at 4twnetwork.com/quityourwhining, quityourwhiningshow.com. I hope to have up and running soon. And be sure to check out, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Admiral Joker. All new shows will be going up there, including future live streams. And follow me on Twitter at Admiral Joker. So, thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Fuck you.